Good morning, kids. This is Grandma Freeman, and last week the last video I made, I talked about mulling over an idea to make a quilt. And the quilt that I found was in this book, Easy Bazaar Crafts by Better Homes and Gardens. And in here, I found this quilt. And I liked the idea. And these were, I guess, hand transfers or hand-drawn cats. Every one of them, you can see, in different positions. So I decided that I liked it, although the idea of cats were fine, but I wanted to do something different. And so what I decided to do is outline some Mother Goose characters or cartoons or comics in these colors, according to what it is. If it's a duck, I'd probably use yellow, and I hope it would show up. And anyway, so then I looked in this kids quilt book right here, and I found this one. And I really like this one. I think it's very attractive. And my little granddaughter, who's 2 now, and she'll be 3 by the time I finish the quilt, hopefully in time for her birthday in November. So, and this says quick and easy, but it won't be that quick or that easy with the painting and the transferring of the transfers. So, and this has directions, and on here it tells me how much cloth I need. And well, I have this piece of batting here, and it has a measurement, and the measurement, I wrote the measurements of all the cloth on this card here. And I had to fit the batting, so I came up with a plan for that and how many squares I'll need. And I have over here the material. I did go ahead and wash this material. I measured it, and the squares are going to be 5 inches. The extra 1.5 inch is for the seam allowance. And then over here, I have chosen this gingham. I think that's gingham, red and pink. And I will need to make these 3.5 inches wide, the strips, each strip, to allow for a 1.5 seam allowance between the strips and the squares. And this here will be the backing. When I was mulling over the idea, this was going to be the backing, but actually they recommend gingham, and this is a little thicker, and I think it would make a perfect backing. And I will, of course, let's see, how does that go? Well, anyhow, I'll make the hearts run down so that they will be very attractive. And okay, let me go over here and show you this one. These are the cartoon. Here's the 3 bears and Goldilocks, and then I guess that's Bambi, and some others that I can use. And I came up, if I'm going to, well, this one I think has 6 squares across and 7 squares down. I think I read that in that print there. But mine, to make it fit the batting, so I don't waste any of the batting, I will make it, this shows what I have to do here. 45 5-inch squares, and then 9 strips of gingham long, and 7, but I think it will have to be 8 if I make that extra. This one only is 6 by 7, 7 long and 6 wide, or no, 5. Yeah, 6. No, 5. I think mine will have to be 6 and then 8 to make it fit that batting. And then I think her used bed is wider than that anyway, too. But so right here, and then for the edging, I think I'm going to cut that. I wrote down 6. I would need 4, but I think 5.5 by 3.5 would be better, because I do want the edging to wrap around and be sewn onto the backing, of course. So this one is nice, and I don't know if that's a print fabric or what. But I think it's nice, but I think the characters will be better, and they iron on. They're supposed to. So I have done calculations, and I think, okay, that 6.5 strips for the edging would be 5.5. I thought about that more carefully. And then, because I don't want a whole inch for the seam allowance on either side. Anyhow, and then, okay, I calculated that I would need 48 squares, and that would be 6 by 8, 6 wide and 8 long on the squares. And the strips, I need 12 long, I believe, and, well, I am not sure, but I'm going to read the directions and see how they want me to include the strips or sew the strips onto the squares. I'll do that first, and then I'll use my idea if that doesn't seem easy enough. Okay, so that's what I have. And my batting is 56 inches long and 48 wide. What is going to happen, I don't know if I wrote this down. I didn't here, but I figured it's going to be about 45 wide and 56 long with the squares and the strips after it's all sewed together. And then, of course, I have to put the wraparound edging. And then this book also tells me what I need, and I have enough fabric in all areas. And I've already ironed this. They suggested ironing that. And they gave me, actually, AI read my goals for 2026, and they led me to them, and they asked me to ask them a question. So I asked a question about the fabric, and I told them what I was planning to do. And then they gave me some helpful hints about how I'm going to transfer and some things to make my transfers adhere better along with the paint. So I'm going to try their answers. And then they asked me if I needed any help calculating, and I said I had that covered. I had already started that. And so these are the tools and the notions that I will need to do this. I think, okay, of course, the fabric in the measurements they suggest, which this won't be that big because it's for a child's bed. So I will need 4 clips to hold the fabric together. I will need safety pins, a pencil, and I have a little pencil sharpener there. And then I need cutting tools. I have 2 pairs of scissors. The black ones will be for cutting thread, and the other ones, those are Pfizer's, I think, and they will be used for cutting fabric. And also I have this roll cutter. And then I have a seam ripper and a measuring tape and a ruler and this little measuring gauge. And then this right here, and safety pins are necessary when I'm attaching the batting to, and the quilt top and the backing all together. And this little tool right here, that little paddle, is to help me hold fabric down when I'm sewing. If it gets stuck or something, I can push it down. And then, of course, this is the thread I need. I need thread, needles, and I chose these needles because I think they're a little bit, the eye is bigger so that I can get the quilting thread through it. I need white, and it said pink, and this is this is a little bit more red to go with the backing. And then I have extra sewing needles, Singer sewing needles, if I need those. And these little things help me thread my needles. And I have a seam ripper. And then I have my paint and these paint brushes. And I have an iron over here. And under the iron are 3 cardboards. And I need those when I'm painting the squares, when I'm painting the transfer art onto the squares, so that it doesn't leak through on anything. And then this, I'm not sure if I'll use it, but if my transfers don't work out, I can cut these little teddy bears out and applique those on. So that's an idea. And I think I'm going to use up as much of this fabric as I can. I have, let me see here, I have it written down. The Muslim squares fabric is 65 inches long and 24 inches wide. I think that will be enough to make 48 squares. And that will be my next step. I'll do that. And I also over here have a little box I can keep all of this in. And I have a smaller one to keep the thread and all those little pieces together. So that's where I'm at with this. And so I hope this works out. As I said, the next thing I'm about to do is to read the directions in both of these books to get all the help I can get about it. And then I will try to find 48 of those. Of course, I'm going to do a sample first. And they have little pictures I can use as samples. And any leftover pieces of this muslin fabric I will use to test. Any little scraps I'll use for testing the transfer on, just to make sure it shows up enough to paint over it. So this is everything I will need, and my sewing machine and an ironing board, of course. I have those. And my sewing machine is in this box. And I also have this little piece. I can sit down with a TV tray and paint with the cardboard, of course, so I don't mess up my measurements here. These are 1-inch measurements. So when I cut, I can make sure I'm doing it right. I could make the squares larger and maybe, do it just the way this one is showing. But I think the 5-inch squares are smaller than these squares. So I think it will work out the way I'm planning. Okay, kids. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Bye now. Wish me luck.